Hello, homies, and welcome to another episode of Easily Entertained. I am your host, Maddy McClain. Another day, another dollar, and another set of unhinged headlines that we have to wade through. But have no fear, because your girl is here, and I'll help you steer through the madness so you don't end up wasting hours of your life in an internet deep, dark black hole. Well, it's been a time over here, I'll tell you what. I came across these series of TikTok videos about all of these girls that are getting punched in the face by a stranger in New York City. Like 8 different accounts of these girls that are just walking about, minding their own damn business, and a rando comes up and punches them straight in the noggin. And I just felt that it was my duty to you to give you this story first, my homies, my easily entertained homies, because I myself have also been punched in the face twice, not just once. More like the head, I suppose, but I too have been punched in the face by a stranger. I kind of told you this story, I believe, at some point, but I'm not glad that these other gals are being sucker punched by any means. So know that first and foremost. But it's odd to know that I'm not alone in this plight, that I too am not the only one with a punchable noggin. Once it happened, my first year or so of living in the good old city of Los Angeles. And I was walking with my brother in the art district, which is more like, well, as it might sound, like where the artsy peeps hang, and there's lots of warehouses and shit. And we went for he's a musician, so go figure. And we went to this show that was fun, loved it, great time. And I don't know, he probably looks more at home is why I say that in that area of town. But we're just minding our own business as well. I'm talking, well, yeah, I guess it goes without. We're just chatting. We're walking away from the venue that we were at. We're on the sidewalk. And we walk, I guess, past some sort of club, bar. I think it was an arcade bar type thing. And I kind of in the distance just hear a loud female voice, and I don't think anything of it. Yeah, no one would. But next thing I know, as the voice comes closer towards us, I feel this boom, this clock, right on the side, on my temple. But I get punched in the face by this bitch. I just go completely still. I am shell-shocked. Matthew, my brother, stops, looks at me, and is like, what just, and they're still kind of yelling random things and past us a little bit at this point. I still haven't moved. I'm like, what the, kind of holding my head. I turn around. Matthew's running after these girls. They're running. He's like, hey, did you just hit my sister? And then I'm getting worried that now there's this man chasing 2 girls. It doesn't look great for him, but he's just, standing on business for his sister. And they're like, she was talking to my boyfriend, which, I mean, no, I was just talking to my brother, and I've never seen this woman in my life. So, yeah, she runs off. We turn to the bouncer, and we're like, well, what do we do? Do we call the cops? And he's like, cops won't care unless there's blood. We're like, okay, sick. So we went a little closer down to Koreatown, and I got myself I think it was an ice cream sandwich to place on my head where I was just punched by a stranger. So, yeah. And then after that, the second time was being on the streets of Austin, Dirty Sixth Street, which, by the way, if you visit Austin, don't go out there. That would not be my first recommendation. Just know that. And know that I've put that on record. So, but anyways, I was out there and I didn't see this guy coming. It was a sucker punch just in the back of the head. I turn around and he yells, wrong person, sorry, and runs away. So that's really awesome. I love to be mistaken for somebody else, but I don't know what's up with these other gals. Allegedly, it's something that requires the work of TikTok sleuths to figure out, to nail down this rando that is punching women throughout the streets of New York City. So girls, be safe out there. Be safe out there. Not that it ever is for us, but Not even Barbie, not even the movie about Barbie could solve that. Who would have thought? It's crazy. Anywho, so today's episode, I'd like to call it a little bit of allegation station. There's lots of lawsuits flying around again. And there's been an update in the Diddy lawsuits and the allegations there that now involve feds. And the series of lawsuits, we're now at 5. That has really led to this latest update. Diddy's houses in Miami and LA were raided. So we're going to talk all about that, go into the details of what's happening there. There is some drama going down involving Sacha Baron Cohen. That's Mr. Borat, for those that don't know, comedian, actor, and Rebel Wilson. So we'll talk about what is going on between these two, why are their names in the news, and what's happening there. Of course, we will be talking all about The Bachelor, Joey's final lady and now fiance, and the announcement of the upcoming Bachelorette, some drama that's been going on off screen, and just kind of share my hot takes with you on really the season in general, but also the finale, and how I will very much miss this really honestly iconic season that I think now puts it in the same realm of like Sean Lowe's season, which was one of the few successful series. But anywho, so get ready for a good episode. Buckle up, buckle in, and let's get this thing going. Which leads me to talk about P. Diddy, or Sean Combs, Puff Daddy. He's gone through lots of different identities because he sounds like he's a crazy motherfucker. And we'll talk about just why I feel that way and why the world feels that way. So in a previous podcast episode in late November of 2023, it's a pop culture news nuggets episode, I covered the first lawsuit that came out that made headlines regarding P. Diddy. And this was from his ex of 11 years, Cassie, who's also is a pop singer, but all because really of Cassie, or Cassandra Ventura, all because of her brave stepping forward and filing of this 35-page lawsuit against P. Diddy late last year is what led to 4 more lawsuits. And now, as of very recently, this week on Monday, March 25th, feds raided his homes in Los Angeles and in the Miami area that are connected to Sean Combs, or Diddy. This quickly made headlines, as you can imagine, as Homeland Security agents were photographed carrying bags and stuff outside of the LA home, where they shut off the road leading to Diddy's house, as well as a Miami beach. And to get an understanding of all of this, of course, the cops and law enforcement didn't speak on the details of the case, at least not with their names pinned to it, but we can take a pretty safe guess, and it was confirmed by an anonymous law enforcement officer that this was in investigation of the sex trafficking charges. Yeah, so let's back up a little bit and let me tell you about Diddy and where these lawsuits come from and what they are alleging. So, as we mentioned before, Cassie, his ex-girlfriend, she filed this lawsuit late last year that included some really wild and horrific allegations. Everything from forcing her to carry his gun in her purse and controlling nearly every aspect of her life, like what she eats, what she wears, financially. He is the reason, really, that her career took off. And so she became pretty dependent on him, which really makes way for some very toxic and abusive relationships. So everything from that to, you guessed it, sexual assault, rape, and forced sex with prostitutes and sex workers. And another thing that was included in here is also that Diddy blew up the car of one rapper who Cassie briefly dated, which would be none other than Kid Cudi, who confirmed this himself. That tells you what kind of a temper that P. Diddy must have. Now, according to her suit, this is from the New York Times. According to the suit, Mr. Combs called these encounters, quote, freak-offs. So the encounters where he would force people he worked with, including Cassie, particularly in this case, to have engagements with sex workers and prostitutes and people that they would hire and bring in airplanes and across state lines to these, quote, freak-offs. Really cute name, P. Diddy, which involved costumes like masquerade masks and lingerie. They continued for years, taking place at high-end hotels across the U.S. and in Mr. Combs' homes. The suit says that he instructed Miss Ventura, Cassie, to search the websites of escort services to procure male sex workers. Drugs were supplied at these events, which Miss Ventura's suit says she took because they, quote, allowed her to disassociate during these horrific encounters. According to the suit, Miss Ventura would delete videos from these incidents that had been shot on her phone, but Mr. Combs told her he still had access to those videos, and on a flight once made her watch a video she thought she had deleted. The suit says that as a result of these sexual encounters in different cities, Miss Ventura was a victim of sex trafficking. The suit also accuses Mr. Combs of sexual battery, sexual assault, and violations of New York City's gender-motivated violence law. Okay, so lots of details. I mean, I did not read the whole 35 pages of this suit, but really it includes so much in there. Highly detailed. And keep in mind, too, that they met when Cassie was 19 and he was 37. So just something to keep in mind, which turns out to be a common theme with Sean Combs. So P. Diddy, obviously, just from the get-go, has a massive amount of power and influence and impact and money. He is credited, or part of the credit, to bringing rap and R&B and hip-hop into the commercial or pop culture world. You know, he's an older dude now. He's 57. So he worked with Notorious B.I.G. and helped bring them into fame. Mary J. Blige, Lil' Kim, and then remember his show he did on MTV called Making the Band, where Danity Kane, shout out Danity Kane. All of that to just put into perspective just the massive amounts of power and influence he has in the music industry as a whole. So, because of Cassie's lawsuit, we can say it gave two victims, the confidence to stand up for themselves too. And they also alleged some other horrific encounters, including rape, and also named a few others, including people that worked for P. Diddy. But then the most recent lawsuit, and mind you, that huge lawsuit that Cassie filed, that was settled after just one day. Okay. I don't know about you, but that feels like an awful lot of guilt and needing to get that to go away. But it didn't, and thankfully. So Rodney Lil Rod Jones, who was a producer in the latest album of P. Diddy that was released last year, came out too. And this also was a lengthy, detailed lawsuit. It really did detail a similar experience to Cassie, including the, manipulation, the violence, the abuse, the drugs, the, quote, freak-offs. Where, again, it's also mentioned that there were always loads of underage girls there in his homes in LA, New York, Miami, and his yacht in the U.S. Virgin Islands. But something to note is that lots of these experiences, I even hate to call them experiences, lots of these terrible encounters, these freak-offs, whatever, all of this shit was recorded and filmed, which turned out to be not only a large part of his own manipulation, like nasty, evil, strategic game to use as blackmail against these people of power in the music industry, those that work with them, Cassie, Lil Rod, whoever it may be. He would use this as blackmail, but now this video, this film, hopefully, now that they have done these raids, will probably be a large part of his downfall, of his conviction, I hope. But they have yet to obviously fully arrest him or anything like that yet, so keep that in mind. And this is ongoing, I'm sure. There will be more details that have come out by the time you are listening to this, but the lawsuits against Combs claim that many people in a circle helped facilitate his abusive behavior. So Lil Rod, the producer, he alleged that Combs ordered his staff to recruit, again, the sex workers for parties, and some were responsible for supplying illicit drugs. According to the lawsuit, Combs' chief of staff, Christina Coram, required all of his employees, including chefs, butlers, and housekeepers, to walk around with a pouch or fanny pack filled with drugs so Combs could have his, quote, drug of choice whenever he wanted. Yeah, so some of those other people that were named in that include Universal Music CEO Lucian Grange, as in Sophia Richie Grange, her husband now, Elliot Grange, that's his dad, just saying. Motown Records CEO Ethiopia Habtemariam, and Combs' eldest son, Justin Combs. As you can see, with all of that culminating into this recent raiding of his homes, that is a sure sign things are gearing up. They don't just do that out of the blue. They don't do that without a wealth of evidence that's behind all of that. Hopefully this leads to some justice for all of them and to get him, that scary, scary predator, away. So this is also, now I'm going to more talk about things that people are chattering about, less evidenced, but like on TikTok, a video has come out of this really, really bizarre, uncomfortable, and clearly inappropriate like Instagram live that P. Diddy did once with this young, like this girl looked to be like 9, and he's surrounded by P. Diddy and like a few other men just surrounding her, and she's beautiful, but she's young, you know what I mean? And goes, introduce yourself, and they're all laughing, and she's like, hi, I'm Ava, and I'm a Scorpio, and he goes, no, what's your last name? Like, it sounded gross. It sounded terrible. It made my stomach drop. I felt ill. I don't know. Just, of course, now that this has all come out, people are feeling more comfortable to speak out about these kinds of experiences or things that they've seen in the past, including, you know, people are talking about Justin Bieber. When he was really young and just coming into the music industry, there was lots of footage, pictures taken of him with P. Diddy, like they hung out. They had like a sleepover without anybody. Like his parents sent him there, presumably to help be his producer and stuff. But who knows now? I don't know. I'm not going to say anything, but just know that that's a speculation. And I'm sure we'll hear about that. I don't know. Hopefully nothing happened of that nature with Justin Bieber, but we'll keep posted on what goes down with that. As of now, the latest is he was pictured, or someone took a video. And why are all these videos like such horrible quality? Like, we're in 2024, but I swear all of the the royal family video, this video, but I digress. This grainy ass video of him like kind of pacing back and forth at a private Miami airport. It's rumored that he got on the plane and straight up tried to take his private plane out of the country to like Aruba or somewhere with like very loose extradition laws, so they couldn't extradite him to the US. So I think they literally got him right before he was about to just try and disappear and leave his kids to clean up everything, because you see photos of them, of the cops and the agents like holding his kids back. They're, you know, grown adults at this point, but in handcuffs while they search the houses, and that's like really messed up. And he wasn't even there for that. But obviously doesn't really sound like he's an upstanding person to begin with. Allegedly. Allegedly. Rebel Wilson, everyone's favorite fat Amy from Pitch Perfect, and a million other things, but that's like, you know, what you'll know her from, which is its own discussion in and of itself. But anyways, so Rebel Wilson had posted kind of a cryptic Instagram post about an asshole who she wasn't naming at the time, an asshole trying to prevent her upcoming memoir called Rebel Rising to be released and published by a certain someone that we did not know yet. And people started speculating and talking about it, and somehow, because, well, people are going to sleuth and they're going to figure it out. Finally, she then posted a follow-up and was like, all right, so it's Sacha Baron Cohen. Borat. Sacha Baron Cohen was producing a film called The Brothers Grimsby. This is back in 2016. So they met back in 2013, where that's when Baron Cohen asked Wilson to star alongside him in the movie that Baron Cohen co-wrote and produced. And allegedly in this memoir that she's releasing in April, so, good publicity time, but still, eventually the excerpt itself got taken out. She posted on Instagram, "All right, the asshole is Sacha Baron Cohen, and he is trying to prevent my book from coming out due to one portion in one chapter about him, an experience that she had." And this excerpt was found by, at least it was posted on Reddit, because Reddit can scrounge up pretty much anything. So let me read you the excerpt in her memoir regarding SBC, who will call him Sacha Baron Cohen. Okay. "It felt like every time I'd speak to SBC, he'd mention that he wanted me to go naked in a future scene. I was like, I don't do nudity, Sacha. One day, while filming at a soccer stadium in Cape Town," she writes, "SBC summons me via production assistant saying that I'm needed to film an additional scene. Okay, well, we're going to film this extra scene," SBC says. Then he pulls his pants down. SBC says, very matter-of-factly, "Okay, now I want you to stick your finger up my ass." And I'm like, what? No. Wilson continues in her book, "I was now scared. I wanted to get out of there, so I finally compromised. I slapped him on the ass and improvised a few lines as the character." Wilson writes that she called her agent and spoke to a lawyer. "I was encouraged to, quote, be professional and finish the film," she writes. "After that, my way of dealing with it at that point was to try to laugh it off." Then, Wilson writes, she was asked to do reshoots, including a sex scene. "I filmed the scene after demanding rewrites, but I still had to simulate having sex with this guy. I still had to kiss him repeatedly. A few months later," she continues, "it really sank in that all this wasn't something that could be laughed off. I relayed to the producers that I would not be doing any promotion for the film. In the end," Wilson writes, "the movie bombed, which to me was karma enough. I'm not about canceling anybody, and that's not my motivation for sharing the story. I'm sharing my story now because the more women talk about things like this, hopefully the less it happens." Hopefully so. And, we believe all victims and we believe women. So that's just going to be the basis of this. And I don't think, especially when you're having to go talk to a lawyer and your producers, and for her agent to tell her to, quote, be professional and just go deal with it is bonkers. Not surprising really, but just, demonstrative of the world we live in. Mind you, also that was in 2016. So that was the excerpt in the book that Sacha Baron Cohen has been trying to get to not be released, but that's not going to work. So it's still going to come out, and SBC has denied Rebel Wilson's account of their time working together through a statement shared by his rep with The Hollywood Reporter earlier this week. After all these Instagram stories came out, people started talking about it. Saying, "While we appreciate the importance of speaking out, these demonstrably false claims are directly contradicted by extensive detailed evidence, including contemporaneous documents, film footage, and eyewitness accounts from those present before, during, and after the production of The Brothers Grimsby." Spoken like a real lawyer, I'll tell you what. Allegedly, Sacha Baron Cohen's team also shared 9 anonymous statements with people in support of Baron Cohen. Anonymously supporting? I don't know. 5 of the people who are identified as being involved in the film and witnessing the Cape Town scene disputed Wilson's account. As per the script, which Rebel had read and approved in advance, her character was attempting to put a finger in Sacha's character's butt. At no point did Sacha actually ask her to put a finger in his butt, said a producer. I'm sorry, it's really hard just talking about fingers and butts and stuff. But anyways, so then finally Wilson rebutted and just said, "I wrote about an asshole in my book. Now, said asshole is trying to threaten me. He's hired a crisis PR manager and lawyers. He is trying to stop press coming out about my book. But the book will come out and you will all know the truth." Wanted to share with you a few films and TV shows in the works, including a possible Sims movie. So Lucky Chap and Vertigo Entertainment, it's the producing company behind Margot Robbie and others, Josie McNamara and Tom Ackerley. And they're working to put together the Sims movie. So I think they're starting to go through all the toys now after Barbie. But me personally, as a recovered Sims addict myself, like I would play that shit for hours. You know, I knew all the cheat codes, motherload, and then that other one. Yeah, so I'm just trying to prove to you my devotion back in the day for The Sims. So for me, this is a very exciting thought. I wonder how that would work in a movie, but I also wondered that about Barbie, and they did pretty well. So Lucky Chap, the producing company, has also produced Saltburn. So, I mean, they've got a pretty stellar team behind it. I think we can look forward to something. It's sounding like this would be maybe sometime in 2025, I believe, according to Variety. But we shall see. Another rumor making its way around Hollywood is that Travis Kelce is in talks of hosting a reboot of Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader on Amazon Prime Video. Amazing. We love it. I feel like Travis Kelce is obviously very beloved by many, including the NFL fans and Swifties alike, but also Jason Kelsey. They should co-host together is my suggestion, but I don't know, potato, tomato. You know what I'm saying? So Kelsey would possibly host Fifth Grader, and he is not the first athlete to host a game show by any means. Michael Strahan did $100,000 Pyramid. Never really watched that, but that was on ABC. Peyton Manning for other like college bowl series, but not so much like game shows. You know what I'm saying? I hope he does, but I also hope Jason joins him. And speaking of TV, baby, it was a big week. It was a big week in Bachelor Nation. It really was. And I'll tell you why, and hopefully you know why. But our boy Joey has chosen his fiance, and it was one of my very favorite, well, first of all, one of my very favorite series in a while in the franchise, but also one of my favorite Bachelors, and yes, one of my favorite finales. Of course, they did the whole teasing, like, this is the craziest episode we've ever seen. Whole, shtick. And to give them props, because usually it's like, it's nothing and they just want to fake you out to watch it and make it seem more dramatic than it is. Take the letter that Kelsey wrote to Joey saying we need to talk. Obviously scary. Those are pretty notorious 5 words. And, when we're talking about relationships, you know what I'm saying? Isn't usually good. And then it ended up, she was like, I just wanted to tell you I miss you and I love you. And poor Joey looked like he had just seen his life flash before his eyes, which may have worked in her favor. Anywho, so the week before was the Women Tell All. Also an excellent episode. It got a little like Maury, a little Dr. Phil like showdown-y in the beginning, but it did get better. And this week we're taken to the finale. They are still in Tulum/Akumal. Shout out Akumal fam. They are in Tulum, Mexico. And we are down to Daisy and Kelsey as final 2. And this is when they go to meet Joey's family. So Joey's met Daisy and Kelsey's family along with 2 others that were there for the hometown dates. But this is where we're coming up. They both have they meet the family and then they have like a final date, a daytime activity, and then an evening dinner date. And then the next day is the decision day or whatever, where Joey will propose to his fiance. But Bachelor Nation and Jesse Palmer left us with that little like, this has never happened before in Bachelor history. And I myself, being fluent in Bachelor history, we weren't left with too many things. Like we've had the change their mind scenario. We've had the left without a ring scenario, I believe. We've had, crazy shit has gone down. It's been something like 22 seasons now. And speculation, some people were right. I purposely did not look at the spoilers, and I'm glad I didn't, but allegedly Reality Steve, who's spoiler king, didn't even get the full thing right. So they were somehow able to keep this one under wraps. But so let's start with when they're meeting the family. So Daisy is first, and Daisy is just the epitome of like a great gal to bring home to your mom, like super sweet from the get-go, smiley. And they clearly have a good connection, and they all seem to really love Daisy. His mom seems like she has all the opinions in the family. Kind of no nonsense, but she seems sweet. And then we have Joey's dad, who I don't think said much at all, really. I had forgotten this, but part of Joey's story was that his dad came out, and he's actually gay, and they were young when they got a divorce, but no step parents or anything that we met. But then Joey also has 2 beautiful sisters and a brother-in-law. The amount of times they kept bringing up Joey himself, bringing this up, and his family, they kept bringing up his biggest fear of someone not choosing him, and his fear that he's going to end up alone and nobody is like he cares too much for somebody else and the other person isn't ready. But they talk about it so much that I wanted to shake him and be like, the more you say that, the more you're putting it out into the world, because dang it starts to feel like it might be destined to come true after that. We have Kelsey getting in her own head a lot, which I think led to Kelsey saying, so the sisters kept asking, are you ready for marriage? Are you ready for that? And Daisy from the get-go immediately was like, yes, if he asked me to marry him, if he got down on one knee today, I would say yes. Kelsey was like, I think so, yes. It's not like, you could tell she was real nervous meeting them. So I think so, yes, something along the lines of, like I don't have like a specific, like I'm not checking off a box of when exactly it needs to happen, but yes. And I mean, when she thinks about not being the one for Joey, she breaks down and cries in front of both of his mom and dad. So it's clear she really loves him and cares about him. But the I think so really set the sisters off and being nervous about that. But they like both of them, and things, honestly, in my humble opinion, I think his family liked Daisy more than Kelsey. But me personally, I feel like it was so clear just by the way that Joey would describe the two of them before his family met them, and when bringing Kelsey in, that he like lights up in just a different way when it comes to Kelsey. And I feel like they kind of hid that from us throughout the season, which they do a lot. And like in Sean Lowe's season, who is probably one of the more successful relationships, he chose Catherine, and she definitely didn't have the most screen time in his season. And then later on, you're like, oh, wow, look at their connection. So maybe that's kind of what they did with this season, I think. So they both meet Joey's family, and then we move on to their final dates before the proposal or the breakup, which is rough. We start with Daisy again. For their daytime date, they do this like, I don't know, spiritual steam cave thing, and the vibes were really off, and Daisy kind of picked up on it, and Joey seemed not fully there like he'd usually been throughout the season. And I think Daisy, obviously feels that a bit, and he kept saying things like, even if it's not us at the end of this, like, I want the two of us to be so happy, and I care about you, and I love you. It kind of felt like a breakup the way he was talking with her, and she felt that way too. And she talks to the camera and admits that the situation blows, and it actually made me kind of emotional seeing her that way. I feel like she held back a lot of the emotional part of it throughout the season until this. And she goes so far as to say, I don't think it's me. And maybe I don't think it's me because I've never really been chosen. And that just about broke my heart in two. The day portion went by, and then Daisy and Joey are back on their evening, like dinner date or whatever. I mean, they never actually eat dinner together. That's, as you probably have noticed, seeing the full plates of food on every date. But I digress. Maybe that's just me that pays attention to shit like that, or my obsessive nature. Anyways, we don't need to dissect that. The evening portion, it's kind of the same vibe, but you can tell Daisy kind of picked up her energy a little bit. Was like, you know what? I definitely was feeling down, but who knows? Who am I to say? What if it is me? What if it is me? And she sticks through it. But we kind of get the same reaction from Joey. And for me, it totally felt like a goodbye, the way he was talking to her and stuff. And Daisy tells him that she loves him. And he says, thank you. I love hearing that. In his defense, though, he said he wasn't going to say, I love you to anyone unless they're the final rose. They're his fiance and the one he ultimately chooses, which I support. Instead of, I saw some meme that, then you've got Clayton, a past bachelor, standing in front of the final two on his finale night. And it's like, I slept with both of you. So anyways, that was an epic season if you haven't seen that one. So then we go into Kelsey's date, and honestly, it felt like night and day. And they start off with a spa day date, and they give each other massages, and they're like making out. And then you flash back to when Daisy's kind of starting to freak out again about where Joey's head's at. So editors really putting in work there. They did good. I'll tell you what, the Bachelor editors did good. And then they go on to the evening portion. And the reason you can say it's night and day is there's a moment where they're having a conversation and they talk about, the reality of there's another woman here and it's hard for me. I don't want to think about it not being me. And Joey says, I don't want you to think about that either. And I was like, perked up. Ding, ding, ding. But anyways, so that happens. They both finish their final dates. And now we're taken to the day of the proposal, the day of the decision. And then we see Daisy getting ready, putting on her red dress, Kelsey putting on her white dress. Bold choice, I must say. Daisy's talking about, you know what, I got to do this. I'm going to go. I don't think it's me, but this is the right thing to do. And we're like, what's that? Oh my God, what's she going to do? There was thoughts maybe she's going to leave him. What's going to happen? And we see her walking and knocking on Kelsey's hotel room door to talk to Kelsey. I swear, I was like, what? At first, my initial thoughts are, this feels like maybe karma for Kelsey making Joey really nervous. That I know I would be nervous if the other girl knocked on my door. This has not happened in Bachelor Nation. But it was so not that. They both immediately hug and kind of tear up. And Daisy was super respectful and walks in and says, hey, can we sit down and talk? And Kelsey says, sure, kind of scared. I mean, I would be too. And Daisy basically says, asks her, can I ask you how your final date was? Did he give you validation? And Kelsey's like, yeah, he did. Yeah. How was yours? And Daisy got teary-eyed and said, yeah, something was off. Something was really, really off. And they have this moment of just girlhood and her. We don't see the rest of that conversation, but then they hug and she's like, I love you, I care for you, and this is crazy and this is hard and wow. So that's all. We don't really see, that's what we see of the conversation until we come back from break and we get one solo shot of Daisy pulling up in the car, then another shot of Kelsey pulling up in the car and Joey waiting. And usually it's the first person that gets out of the car is not the one that's getting proposed to. So they show Kelsey first to throw us off, and then Daisy, and then they zoom out and we see that the two of them are together in the back of the limo holding hands, and we've never seen that. So they're going in together. I was like, oh my gosh, first Bachelor throuple? No, it wasn't a throuple though. And Daisy goes down first, and she stops Joey midway through him, talking about how much he cares for her and all of this, and essentially takes that burden away from him. And she says, I love you and everything. You've changed my life. But the thing is, I know it's not me. And Daisy said, I know something was off and I know it's not me and I thank you and I wish you the best and all of this. And he offers to walk her out and she says, no, this is something I have to do on my own. Another iconic line. And walks back to Kelsey, gives her a hug and says, your mom would be so proud of you. She's looking down on you right now about Kelsey's mom that passed away, and they hug and cry. And that was just such a woman empowerment moment. And I loved that. Something we don't see enough of, especially in reality TV. Then Kelsey walks down and they have one of the most beautiful proposals ever. But then my heart also broke for Daisy. It was emotional. And I think that they had one of the best proposals. They were very sweet. Kelsey is very well spoken. And they got engaged, and it's Kelsey. And honestly, that's who I wanted. They have a more low-key, like giggly, funny relationship. Like, I just think they had a deeper relationship. I do have to say that Daisy was almost so strong that I was like, wait, she seems like low-key a little excited to say goodbye to Joey. But I don't know. That could be in my head. I still like her, but just something to think about. So that was the finale. And then we're taken to after the final rose where they're all reunited. And of course, the Golden Bachelor ladies are there and everyone's anticipating this portion of the show for A, to see the happy couple together, and B, more like this is A and that one was B, but whatever, to see who the new Bachelorette will be. The two major main contenders, I suppose, are Daisy and Kelsey if she wasn't chosen, but Daisy or Maria. Everybody really wants Maria. She would have been super, super entertaining, bold, just the spice of life we need in the franchise. And then, to everyone's surprise, Jenn Tran is chosen. She was in the top 6. She's great, but nobody was like prepared for that. And that's just what they do with this show. I swear to you. Someone related it to when Zach was announced as a Bachelor, and I don't think that they're wrong. That ended up being a really great season, and we all really love Zach. So I feel like it's going to be just like that. But obviously people were disappointed, honestly, including myself. Like we didn't really get to know her that much, in the ways that we got to know the other gals. Now let's talk about the juice behind that. In the announcement and building up to the announcement for the Bachelorette, there were a few things that gave this away, but I do not think that the producers were planning to choose Jenn at all, because a couple of things happened. One, when Daisy came back onto the stage or onto the hot seat for Jesse Palmer, the host, to interview her and all of that. Well, throughout the show leading up to it, there was a vase full of roses on the table in between them. But then when Daisy came on, it was a vase full of daisies. You could say they just want to do something cute and who doesn't love a good pun, right? That's not even a pun. Who doesn't love a good cheese factor, right? Like, we're all watching this to see people fall in love. So obviously we eat up the cheese. The audience loves the cheese. Ain't nobody lactose intolerant over here, okay? And that could be it, sure. But I don't think so, because right before she came on, before the commercial break, Jesse Palmer said, and after the break, we'll be announcing who the Bachelorette is. And that's when Daisy came on and they talked about it. Okay, remember? But then after they finished their interview and before the next commercial break, he says the same thing. And he's like, okay, now we're really going to tell you. And the roses were back on. And that's when they announced that it was Jenn. And the camera panned into the audience and you see Rachel, who was the third runner-up or whatever. But it looked to me like Rachel was saying, no, she's not the Bachelorette, when Daisy was walking up. And then when Jenn comes up, they pan back to the contestants that were on the show, like Maria, and there was Lauren, those like twins or sisters that were on the show. And they seem a little like shocked too. I think word on the street is that they did ask Maria, but Maria declined. And then they also asked Daisy during the show, but she also said no, which is why they made a big hoopla of when they asked, so what's next? And Daisy said, I'm not ready to date yet. So I think We needed to hear that, so we knew that they tried. Maybe this is conspiracy theory land or whatever, but I don't think so. I'm sure Jenn will be great, and it's also amazing that we finally have the first Asian American lead for both Bachelorette and Bachelor, and that's wonderful. And I'm sure she'll be great, but she's another like really young, early 20s girl, you know, and like her entry to it was like, it was painfully awkward. You know, Jesse's like, how does it feel? Like, what are you looking for? And she's like, I'm just looking for some banter and someone who can dish it, like they can take it. And she's like, and I just want to have some fun. So she's like, let's do a shot o'clock. So they bring out shots for like the crowd and Jesse and Jenn to take. So that was her thing, shot o'clock. You know, like it's just painful to see after such a good season. Why we got to do that? I think I don't know. They could still ride on the coattails of the success of this season, the viewership of this season, regardless. But I don't know. I think the general feeling is the same on that. A little bit of disappointment, but like I'm sure she's fine. I'm sure she'll be good. But you know, the people didn't get what the people wanted in that regard. I would say when it comes to Kelsey and Joey that the people did get what they wanted. It's a beautiful love story. And honestly, they just seem real and like normal. They want to, you know, right after that was announced, as they do at the end of every finale, like People magazine gets the cover story and of the couple and interview them. And they said that they want to be or plan to be engaged for 2 to 3 years and live in a tiny NYC apartment. So right now, Kelsey is from NOLA and Joey has been living in Philly, but they're going to be moving to New York City together in the summer. Just their TikToks that they've now released, they just seem like a goofy, fun couple that I can't wait to hear more about, and I'm definitely rooting for them. And I just have a few little notes for The Bachelor to end this baby out. One to the actual, or I guess now, the former Bachelor, Joey Grosade. Okay, great man. He truly seems genuine and like he really listened to the women. And honestly, probably one of the first ones to not make a complete fool of themselves, which, I mean, it's a reality TV show. They either, you know, make money and get good viewership if they do make a fool of themselves or alter it so that they do, you know, or the crowd loves them. So he was lucky. The crowd loves him. But I have to say, the focusing, kind of what we're talking about earlier, focusing so hard on his biggest fear almost was his downfall, I feel like, throughout this season. Because let's keep in mind, he was final 2 of Charity's season when she was the Bachelorette. And he was devastated. He got down on his knee and like started to propose, and Charity had to like grab him and like pull him up to his feet. So he was obviously very traumatized from that moment. And I think he kept that in the back of his head. And because he's a good human, knows what it's like and how painful it is. And so when he was able to manage it like mostly throughout the season, but I feel like when it got down to like hometowns and such, he really started going internally and maybe like living in the past of his experience and how he felt and not wanting the women to feel that way too, and knowing how he's going to hurt them, that he kept wanting validation from them, but he didn't really give out much validation right back, you know? Like I get that wanting to hold back and not overpromise, you know, for them to be disappointed. But like when a woman tells you that she loves you and you say thank you, like that's a little, you know, questionable. I felt like bad for Daisy a little bit, but at the same time, I just know it came from that. And so that's also why I think Daisy knows that too, and how much he really was affected by that final day in which his proposal was rejected on the last season, that I think it was really sweet, and that Daisy did that on purpose, went down there and like almost broke up with him for him. So he didn't have to do that, I thought was another like really sweet gesture, honestly. So goes to show what you focus on becomes your reality a lot of the time. as my voice breaks. I hope you guys write that on a flashcard and stick it under your pillow tonight and say, Guru Matt. Just kidding. I'm not a guru. Which, oh my gosh, speaking of more people coming under fire, another episode for another time. But our boy Jay Shetty, there was an expose written about him, how they say he's kind of like full of it and is just doesn't really have any real credentials behind his like self-help and psychology stuff. I mean, I feel like we should have known that, and allegedly same thing's happening with Andrew Huberman, the doctor, neuropsychologist, neurophysicist. He works with the brain and he's a scientist and has a podcast, but we can talk about that later. I can post all about that. And lastly, I think that was one of the fattest engagement rings we've seen in the franchise. Congratulations, Kelsey. I mean, that thing was gorgeous. Neil Lane, that Neil Lane cameo that we wait for every season. Well, no one waits for it. We just know we're about to see it. I wonder what that kickback is for Neil Lane, you know? Also, I guess that wasn't the last thing. The voodoo doll. Let's all remember Kelsey, the way that she first walked in and introduced herself to Joey. She came out with a voodoo doll of him because she's from New Orleans and all the spooky, ooky, like spirit stuff. I don't know. Is a theme there, as well as hurricanes, but like the drink. Anyways, she brought a voodoo doll and gave it to him. You know what? I think that voodoo be voodooing. Okay. So I don't know. Ladies, should we try it? Anyways, we love the true showmanship of being a girl's girl with Daisy and Kelsey coming together. That's beautiful. And we love. Amazing season. Of course, I'll be watching The Bachelorette, of course. So we'll have more Bachelor talk to come, I'm sure. That was all for today, though. Thank you so much for listening. As always, I appreciate you. You guys are my homies. If you have not already, hit that follow button. Leave me a rating and a review. Would love to hear from you. Follow on Instagram at Easily Entertained Pod. Signing out, your pop culture Sherpa. This is the last episode of the first season of Easily Entertained with Maddy McClain. Don't you worry, the next season is going to be bigger, badder than ever, okay? I'm talking guests, I'm talking video, I'm talking a relaunch, a season 2 launch? Yeah, a launch party. Look out for it all and get excited, share away, and in the meantime, get caught up with any episodes you haven't listened to, and I'll be covering things on the social medias. Over and out, homies. Over and out.